Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's live stream. We are going to be talking about some English proficiency tests today, and specifically, we're going to look at the difference between Ielts, TOEFL, and Duolingo. So, during today's lesson, we'll be doing some test comparisons. And we'll spend most of today looking at some frequently asked questions where you can give your opinion and we can have a little bit of chat through the live chat function. And at the end of today, I am going to be giving you my opinion on the three tests. So, before we go any further, we've got quite a lot of people in the chat. So I'm just quickly going to go through and say hello to some of you. Hi, Kavinu, and hi, Layla. Great to see you here. We've got Fitness Goals. Good to see you. And Rizal. Sleepwalker is here. Pallavi, hi to you as well. And Salma is here. Meifong also. Akash, and Harry is here, Mohammed as well. So welcome all of you to the live stream today. We'll hopefully get to some of your comments a little bit later, but we're going to go on with the lesson today. So when it comes to the frequently asked questions section later, we're going to be looking at some of these questions. Why do you want to take some of these tests? Which test do you think is the easiest? How long does it take to prepare? Should I study for the test if I'm not planning on going to an English-speaking country? Do I take all parts of the Ielts test on the same day? Why should I take the test? Which test is the best to take? How much should I study to prepare for a test? How long does each test take? And can I get a scholarship for any of these tests? So these are going to be some of the questions that I'm going to get your opinions on during today's live stream. And also, if you have any other questions about these three tests, you can write them in the chat and I'll do my best to answer as many questions as I can during today's live stream. A little bit of promotion here. I have a channel called Ielts Insider, where we can see some live classes, mock tests, and speaking practice. The links are below to that channel if you want to go over there and subscribe. Also, for this channel as well, please consider looking at the links below. It's got links to our WhatsApp group. You can also look into the YouTube channel membership and join us now. So that's the promotion out of the way today. And let's go on with our test comparison of these three commonly used English proficiency tests. So we have the Ielts test, the TOEFL test, and the newest test around these days is the Duolingo test. So all of these tests have different features to them. Some of the features are very similar between the tests, but there are some big differences between them as well. So we're going to look just at some information about these three tests. And the first thing we can look at here is the amount these cost. So the exam fees for Ielts can be anywhere between 140 to 310 US dollars. This is dependent on the country that you are taking the test in. Some countries are cheaper, some are a lot more expensive. Usually, if you're taking the IELTS test in a European country, it will be more expensive than some other places. The TOEFL test, the range is from $180 to $325. So again, this depends on the location that you are taking the test in. And the Duolingo test is a flat rate of $49. So you may look at this and go, wow, why is that so much cheaper than the other tests? Well, we'll come to that a little bit later in the comparison between these tests. The duration of the tests, IELTS is around 2 hours 45 minutes for all 4 parts. The TOEFL test is 3 hours and 15 minutes for all of the 4 parts. And the Duolingo test really only has 2 parts to it, and you do them together within 60 minutes. So that's maybe one reason that it is a little bit cheaper. It's a much, much shorter test. We will get our results from IELTS within 3 to 13 days. TOEFL test is usually between 6 and 10 days. And the Duolingo test, you'll get your results within 48 hours. Usually this is all done online. The only problem you may have is if with the Duolingo test, if they have some sort of doubt over your performance in the test. But yeah, so a lot quicker for the Duolingo. Accepting organizations. Now, I'll just bring up this question because Ume has just sent this question. Is Duolingo test applicable everywhere? And the simple answer to that is no. Because if we look at the accepting organizations, IELTS is accepted by 11,000 organizations, TOEFL by 11,500, and these are mostly universities and government agencies and employers. The Duolingo test is accepted in much fewer places, only 3,500, and most of these places are in North America, especially the United States, some places in Canada, but the majority of places that accept Duolingo are in the USA. IELTS and TOEFL are much more widely respected around the world and trusted, so more organizations accept these tests. As far as the accents that are used in the test, IELTS uses accents from all around the world, predominantly English-speaking countries, so the UK, US, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, Ireland, but they do also use other accents as well. They're as long as they're native accents. TOEFL test is very similar. Now, the TOEFL test used to only use North American accents, but this changed around 10 or 12 years ago, and they started using a variety of different accents. The Duolingo test uses American accents only. So there's a little bit of difference there. The IELTS test you will have to do over 2 days usually. Because the speaking test is face-to-face, you have to arrange a separate day for the speaking test and the other 3 parts of the test, the listening, reading, and writing. So those 3 parts will be done on one day, and the speaking test will be done on a different day, usually within 1 week of each other. The TOEFL test is all done on one day, and the Duolingo test is done on one day as well. When we think about where these tests are based, for IELTS and TOEFL, you have to go to a test center. So somewhere that is certified to give these tests by professional people. They also offer two choices. You can do a paper-based test or an internet. This has become much more common these days. Most people use the internet TOEFL and IELTS tests, but it is still possible to do a paper-based test. The Duolingo test is very different. It's done at home or anywhere that you have an internet connection and only offered through the internet. There's no other options for Duolingo. So a lot of this comes down to reliability. We talked about accepting organizations. So IELTS and TOEFL are accepted by many organizations. It's because these tests have been around for a long time. They are trusted. People think they are reliable. They are high quality, and they test the essential parts of English that students must know if they are going to study at an academic level, universities or colleges. So the IELTS and TOEFL tests are much more reliable and trusted than the Duolingo test. The Duolingo test is a newer test. That's not to say it's not going to be more trusted in the future, but at the moment, some people have their reservations about the reliability. Can people cheat on the test and those kinds of things? So yeah, reliability, certainly IELTS and TOEFL are very much trusted. And again, this is shown by how many countries around the world accept these tests. IELTS and TOEFL are accepted in 140 countries and 160 countries around the world. So most major countries in the world will accept these tests. If you are planning to study abroad and you have an IELTS or TOEFL test score, you've got a great chance of being accepted into a university. Duolingo, not so many countries accept that at the moment, so you would be less likely to be accepted in some countries. So this is quite a good comparison. It tells you a lot of things we need to know about the test. One other thing we should know as well is the IELTS test and the TOEFL test are split into clear sections. You have listening, reading, writing, speaking. 4 clear sections. They go into a lot of detail for each of those 4 sections. With the Duolingo test, there's only really 2 sections. The first section is the adaptive test, and you get all types of questions, reading, some listening, some speaking, some writing, some about punctuation. And then you have a very short part at the end where you practice a little bit of speaking and writing. So really, when we look at the IELTS and TOEFL tests, they're a much better gauge of your true English ability. They're so much more detailed than the Duolingo test. Now, that's not to say that the Duolingo test won't improve in the future, but at the moment, I certainly think these 2 tests are much more trusted, accepted worldwide by many organizations. So, let's have a quick look through some of your comments just now and see what you've all been saying about these. So Kavina is saying, James, I have some kind of important questions for you about the mock IELTS exam. Well, Kavinu, if you have any comments, please write them and I try to answer those questions as it goes along. Layla is saying, what an important live stream we'll have today. Great. Thank you, Layla. Pallavi's saying, I'm happy to see you today. So, did you try the Duolingo app? So that's a good question, Sleepwalker, maybe for everyone. Has anyone tried the Duolingo app? Has anyone tried the Ielts test or the TOEFL test? Tell us about your experience. What did you think about it? And Layla's answering. She enjoyed the app here. Let's see. Do we have any other questions related to these tests? We're getting a lot of hellos here, which is great. Okay, we've got one here. Good evening, teacher. How are you today? I'm very, very good. Thank you very much for asking. And Layla has said, I noticed that Duolingo test is cheapest among the three of them. Yep, Layla. There's a few reasons for this. First of all, there's no test center, so they don't have to employ any staff to administer the tests. It's much shorter as well. It's not as detailed as the IELTS test and TOEFL test. And also because it's a new test as well, they need to try and get as many people taking it as possible. So maybe it's a sort of promotion thing as well, but it definitely is the cheapest. I answered the question here earlier. So saving money, saving time, and saving your energy, Duolingo is the best. Haha, from Harry 300. Well, for some people, that might be the test for them. It really depends what you are looking for out of your test. If you're looking to improve academically and go to a university, maybe in an English-speaking country, this might not be the best test for you, but it could be suitable for others. James, do you teach the Duolingo test? I've had some experience teaching with Duolingo, Layla, but not as much experience as I've had with IELTS or TOEFL. So I've taught those tests for a long, long time. My first TOEFL student was over 10 years ago. I've taught IELTS students throughout that time as well. So I have some experience, but not as much as I do with the other tests. Which English application is better? Well, Starlight Moon, it really depends what you want to use the application for. Is it just vocabulary or grammar or just some general practice? So it really depends. So why other countries do accept the Duolingo test? It's really up to the country. If they look at the test and they trust it, they will accept it. But unfortunately, at the moment for the Duolingo test company, a lot of countries are looking at it and thinking, we don't really think this is the correct way to go. They've already got IELTS or TOEFL. They think that these tests are more reliable. So, yeah. The problem, as I said, the reliability is a problem. The way the test is administered as well, some people don't think that it goes deep enough. It doesn't give a true test of your English ability. Those are some of the comments I've been reading about it. Okay, IELTS Insider. Yeah, okay. Yes, out of these three tests, IELTS is the most commonly taken test around the world. The latest figures show there were around 3.5 to 4 million people taking it in 1 year. So it's the most commonly taken test at the moment. TOEFL is around 2 million people, I think 1.5 million per year, and Duolingo is much, much lower there. I think the most negative thing is you need a strong internet. That's a great point, Layla. If your internet drops out during your test, you're going to be in trouble. So yeah, that could be a problem. Okay, while we're at this, please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channels if you're enjoying this. So, a little bit here we're going to look at as well, which is about the scoring systems. So each of these three tests has kind of different scoring system. And first of all, when you look at these scores, you're thinking, what does this mean? But I suppose the best way to think about it is what is the minimum and what is the maximum score? So in Ielts, 0 is the minimum. Oh, sorry, 1 is the minimum, 9 is the maximum. 9 means you are an expert user of English, and 1 means that you are a non-user of English. When we start to get around the score of 5 in Ielts, that is where we start to get accepted for things, maybe for work visas in some countries. Some companies would accept this score. But when we move up a little bit more to a score of maybe 6.5 or 7, this is where we can be accepted to some higher quality universities in the US, the UK, and around the world. Anything above 7 is excellent on the IELTS test. I think for the top universities like Harvard, MIT, Oxford, you would need a 7.5, but most universities will accept 6.5 to 7. Similar with TOEFL, again, a 0 score is a non-user. 120 is an expert user of English. And again, most universities will accept scores in this range of 90 and above. Again, when we're down here, these are the scores that can start getting you somewhere with this test. The Duolingo has a slightly different scoring system. Again, you go from 0 to 160. And again, we're looking kind of a score around 75 to 80 is you're a reasonable user of English. A score around 115 to 120, your English is good. And then obviously the further you go up, you get to expert level. So although the numbers are all very, very different, we could kind of think about it. And a 7 in IELTS is kind of similar to maybe 95 to 100 in TOEFL, 115 to 120 in Duolingo. There's no kind of exact comparison, but roughly these scores would equate with each other. So I suppose you shouldn't really worry too much about the exact scoring system until you've taken the test or until you've started studying and learning about the test. Then you can get an idea of where you are on the band level or on the scoring system. So what we're going to do next is we're going to look at some commonly asked questions about IELTS, TOEFL, and Duolingo. Sorry, Sleepwalker's giving a question here. Yeah, the highest score in Duolingo, 160, TOEFL is 120, and IELTS is 9. And okay, great to hear, Layla. You have liked the live stream, and I hope other students do the same. Yes, Layla, I hope so as well. Akash, this is a really good question. Which one is most difficult in all three tests? They're all difficult in their own way. I think Certainly, IELTS and TOEFL, I would say, because of the amount of time and the amount of detail you have to go into, they would be viewed as being more difficult. Duolingo's a lot shorter and doesn't go into as much detail. Maybe people would think this is a little bit easier, but easier is not better, Akash. So that is why these tests are probably more trusted, I think. IELTS reading is very complicated. Yeah, it can be tough. It takes a lot of practice, Nahid. Sadikur is saying, I have Duolingo score of 70. Very well done. If you have a Duolingo score of 70, that's great. What is the score we need to get work or to study abroad in general? Great question, Salma. And a lot of this depends on where you're going to study. I've had students that have gone to art school in London with a score of around 5.5 to 6. That was enough for this. If you want a permanent visa for the UK or Canada, we need around and Australia, you need a score of 6 on IELTS, 6.5 for New Zealand. So it really depends on the country if you're going to work, and it depends on the university if you're going to study. Some university, the University of Manchester, for example, is 7. Some lower universities might accept 6. Harvard, MIT were 7.5. And that will be the same corresponding score with TOEFL as well. Great question, Salma. This is a great question, Nahid. If I go for immigration, again, this depends on the country. If you're immigrating to the UK, you would need an IELTS test. Duolingo is not accepted in the UK. Most European countries will accept IELTS, and in the US as well. TOEFL is also widely accepted for immigration. You have to check on the country that you're going to. But yeah, again, look at the countries accepted. IELTS and TOEFL are accepted in most countries around the world. Which one is easy to crack in all these 3 tests? I think it really depends. You have to kind of look at what you need from the test. What score do you require? They're all difficult in their own way, Akash. Okay, so from my experience, I saw IELTS is not to show ability to talk, just commercial, but Duolingo far more best. Okay, so the IELTS, the speaking part in IELTS is actually the most detailed out of all 3 tests. The speaking part in IELTS is a one-to-one conversation with an examiner. So it is a lot more detailed than the other 2 tests when it comes to speaking. Okay, Osman, I'm going to take IELTS. Great. We're going to have some frequently asked questions coming up in a minute, Osman. So that might help you here. But in Duolingo, we lose the chance of speaking skill. Yeah. So the speaking and writing part of Duolingo is only 10 minutes at the end of the test. It's not really detailed. You're going to speak for between 1 and 3 minutes. The writing is a 5-minute writing. So it's really nowhere near as detailed as the other 2 tests. Oh, Zalek is saying, how many idioms do I need to know and use while speaking? So I would recommend going to the IELTS Insider channel, having a look at some of those. There's not a set amount of numbers for how many you need, but try to put them into conversation when you can. So, yeah, just using idioms really helps you sound more natural in English. Dace is saying, what's the best score to get in IELTS and TOEFL? Well, the highest score is a 9 on IELTS, 120 on um, TOEFL, but it really depends what you would need that for. So, as I said before, sometimes a 6 score is enough for your purposes. It really depends what you need that score for. Okay, welcome, welcome. Um, what else do we have here? According to your um in my experience, again, it really depends, Layla, on I've taught students that has got a score of 5.5 in IELTS, and they were so happy because they got accepted. It was enough to get accepted to an art college. I also had a student who ended up scoring 108 for TOEFL. She was delighted. She got accepted to a very good university. So um, I've had students that have been disappointed with some of their scores, but most of them have been happy with their scores because they've known what they should be aiming for. And that's so important with these tests. It's not about getting the best score. We shouldn't be aiming for 9 or 120. Aim for the scores that we need. Be realistic. So if you need a 7, aim for that 7. We'll look at um, some of these questions that are coming up, like this one, we're going to talk about a little bit later. Okay. Have you prepared more students for IELTS or TOEFL? Probably about the same. I think maybe slightly more with IELTS, Sleepwalker, but yeah, probably around about the same amount. And a lot of the parts of the tests are quite similar. So a lot of the preparation is similar for these two tests. Obviously, the big difference between the two of them is the speaking part. It's a completely different format for each of the tests. But yeah, probably about the same amount for both of these, maybe a few more for IELTS. Okay, we're going to move on. And oh, hi, Nishan. We're going to look at some questions. Now, I want to get your answers to these questions. So, these are some commonly asked questions about these types of tests. So, our first one, why would you want to take an English proficiency test like IELTS, TOEFL, Duolingo? So, would that be to go to a university in an English speaking country, to immigrate to an English speaking country, to get a job in an English speaking country, or just to check my level? So, what do you think? Write in the chat. What would be your reason? Why would you want to take an English proficiency test? I'll look at some of your answers and hopefully we can get some discussion based on your answers. So, type into the type into the chat. Why would you want to take an English proficiency test? Okay. Sleepwalker saying go to a university, get a job, and just to check your level. Okay, 3 reasons. Abhishek is saying to go to a university. Layla is saying just to check my level. Absolutely to go to university in an English speaking country. Dace is saying to go to a university, go to university, go to university. Um, Now, we'll come to this later. Get a scholarship. Now, not always possible, but we'll come to that later. Get a great job. Get a sleepwalker saying job and check your level. Want to be a teacher. So this is a great way to prepare for that as well. There's a different one to get a job. Check my level for Mayfong, go to university, go to university. So we can see here, this is the by far the most common answer. Go to a university in an English speaking country. So this is a great reason to take IELTS or TOEFL. Those are the tests that are accepted worldwide by the largest amount of institutions, from Harvard to Oxford to the University of um, California, UCLA, whatever. These are the tests. If you are looking to go to a university in an English speaking country, these are the tests you need to take. Not only do they get you into the universities, they will prepare you for attending that university. You will be able to understand written texts. You will be able to understand lectures. You will be able to speak in a fluent way and communicate effectively with your professors and fellow students. So, if your answer is one, definitely the IELTS or TOEFL tests are the way to go for you. Um, some people were saying just to check my level. That's a great reason. It's always good to challenge yourself and see what your ability is. Okay, great answers here. Let's go on to our second frequently asked question. Which test do you think is the easiest? So we've got IELTS, TOEFL, or Duolingo. Which of these tests do you think would be the easiest? So again, let's just write your answers in the chat and see which test people choose. So we've got a Duolingo, Sleepwalker, probably Duolingo, but who knows? Duolingo. Oseas is saying IELTS. Mohammed, IELTS is the easiest. Dace is saying Duolingo. So we're getting a lot of people going for this third answer here. Hi, sir. Good, Masuma. So if you are translating, I think you're looking for a more academic test, I think, here. So I think most of you were choosing Duolingo, and I think that's quite a common answer. A lot of people do believe Duolingo is easier than others, and that might be one of the reasons why it isn't accepted by so many organizations, or it's not accepted in as many countries around the world. So, yeah. Duolingo. Okay, but you're satisfied, Mimo, with Duolingo? That's great. A lot of this comes down to your personal preference, what you want. Sleepwalker, I've had students before who've taken 2 of the tests, have taken IELTS and TOEFL. I've never had a student that has taken all 3 of the tests. The students I know that did the IELTS and the TOEFL, they said they didn't feel there was much difficulty in between the 2 of them. They said, actually, one of them said that they felt that the TOEFL speaking was a little bit more difficult because of the time constraints. So, yeah, but I think they thought they were kind of similar levels. Akash, all difficult for me. Okay, great. Okay, we've got some students from Manila. Just to check my level, too old to immigrate. Okay, Layla, it's still a great reason to take it as well. What do you think about it, James? Layla, I will be giving my opinions at the end of today's lesson, so stick around for that. Yeah, I will be repeating some of the things from earlier, Sind. Also, you'll be able to watch the live stream again later. Okay, we're going to go on to another question. How long does it take to prepare for these tests? So we've got some answers: 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. What do you think? How long does it take to prepare for these tests? Mimo is saying it's a very difficult time in the Ielts test. Yeah. Some people have a lot of difficulty with these tests. Yeah. And also, we're saying toughest is TOEFL, I think. So let's see some of the other answers. Sleepwalker is saying 1 or 2 years. Great answer, Zakaria. It depends. Salma, 1 year. Is there an age limit to go to university? I don't think so. I went to university with people who were in their 60s. So I'm not aware of any age limit to go to university, Leila. So I think we need at least 1 year. Okay. No, Sind. I come from the UK. I come from Scotland. Mei Fong, 6 months. And 6 months. And Paul is saying it depends on 6 months for TOEFL. Logic Tube, it depends on a lot of factors. We've got 1 year, 3 to 6 months, 6 months. It depends. So we're getting a lot of different answers here. Depends. This is what I was going to bring up. Depends on the level of the student. So a lot of you use that answer, it depends. And it does on a lot of things. First of all, what level are you when you start? If you're starting from the very beginning, you're looking maybe at 2 years or maybe more. If you're starting at quite a high level, then maybe you need 6 months to a year. But it also depends on what score you need. So if you're at a good level and you need a score of 6.5, maybe it's 6 months to get that score, especially in TOEFL or IELTS. But let's say you are kind of lower level and you need to get a 6.5. That might take you 1 or 2 years. So a lot of it depends on what level you are to start with and what score you require for this test that you take. Okay, a lot of people coming in. Dubai, I'm a beginner. That's great. We all need to start somewhere, Dubai. And if we're studying for tests as a beginner, always be prepared that you're going to have to study that little bit longer than people who are more advanced than you are. Okay, let's look at another question. Should I study for the test if I'm not planning on going to an English speaking country? What do you think? Yes or no? Should I study for one of these tests if you're never planning to go to an English speaking country? What do you think here? So Daisy is saying 1 year, I'm a beginner. I think 1 year as a beginner, you're going to have to really study a lot there. Daisy, probably looking at a little bit more time here. So for this question, Layla is saying yes, 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 yes. We're getting a lot of yeses for this. Oh, we've got a no. And Upama is saying no. And yeah, I need to test my level. And no, because the certificate expires. Okay. Yes, of course. And yes, yes. So most of us are saying yes to this question. And I think, yes, it is. So there are a few reasons for this. First of all, especially with the IELTS and TOEFL tests, they're going to prepare you for most things you would encounter using English. They will improve your reading ability, listening ability, speaking ability, your vocabulary, your grammar. Everything will improve. So just because they're a proficiency test, it doesn't mean that what you learn in them is not useful for everyday English. But also, it can be useful in your country to get jobs as well, to get promotion in your company if you can show that you have proficiency. So yeah, we've got a lot of more. Oh, everybody, I think everybody's going yes, yes, yes. The score can always confirm your level of English. Yes, we've got a few no's coming in as well, but most people are agreeing here, yes. So I think if your only goal is to either immigrate to another country or study in another country, then maybe it's not worthwhile studying for any other reason. But within these tests, you're going to learn so much about English that it doesn't matter about the test. Your general ability is going to improve so much by learning these disciplines in the test. Okay. Cindy saying studying English is the best for the best. Very good. Okay, let's go on to question 5. This one's about the IELTS test. And this is one of these commonly asked questions many people talk about. Do I take all parts of the IELTS test on the same day? Now, if you were listening earlier, you should know the answer. I talked about this when we were doing the test comparison. So, do I take all parts of the IELTS test on the same day? What do you think? Yes or no? Um, Sleepwalker saying no. Mayfong, no. Harry, no. 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 Layla saying, I think yes. We've got no and a nope. Sleepwalker saying 2 days. I love this answer. Zakaria, maybe, maybe. Mimo, no. And Hadi, no. Layla, yes. Why not? Okay. What does that mean, IELTS? IELTS is the name of the test, Dubai. It means International English Language Testing System. So it's just a type of English language test. And Harry, yeah, here we go, Harry. No, especially the speaking part. Very good. So the speaking part of the test is done face to face with an examiner. So the other 3 parts are done together, listening, reading, and writing. The speaking part is done separately. So I think it's just so difficult for them to schedule the 2 hours, 30 minutes for the main part of the test and then 15 minutes for your speaking test on the same day. So mostly, I think I've never heard of any students doing both on the same day. It may be possible, but I've never heard of this happening. So yeah, the speaking part is usually on a different day, and it will be within 1 week of the other parts of the test. So yeah, our answer to this is no. Yeah, International English Language Testing System. So the T is test. Yeah, the speaking is a different day. Very good. Okay. So let's go on to another question here. Why should I take the test? Improve your English skills, immigration, get into university, get a job, all of the above. So, what do you think? Why should you take the test? Is it one of these four reasons, or is it all of these four reasons? What do you think about this? While I'm waiting for this, um, Layla is saying, do they really expire? Um, I think IELTS and TOEFL expire after 2 years. I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, I definitely IELTS is after 2 years. TOEFL, I think, is the same. The Duolingo test, I'm not so sure how long that one lasts, but yeah, TOEFL and IELTS 2 years. Harry, number five, all of the above. None of the above. Just enjoy the language. Lovely answer, Zakaria. 1 and 4, improve your English, get a job. Great, Akash. Number five. Mimo is just focusing on getting into a university. And Keening is focusing on improving English skills, improve my English skills, get a job. All of the above for 3bood. 511, all of the above. Dace is 134, so improve, get into university, get a job. All of the above, all of the above. Beob, get a job. Sleepwalker, get a job, improve your English skills. Dubai, Layla, okay. Yeah. Okay. So Layla's a little bit behind on that part. Okay. So we can see again, I think a lot of people have very, very different reasons for taking the test. But the purpose of this question here is really to show there are so many advantages you can get from taking these types of tests like IELTS. You will improve your English skills, especially your ability to read and understand and speak in an academic way, which is essential for going to university. Not only getting into university, but understanding the content when you get there. Very useful for immigration. If you plan to go and work in a foreign country, IELTS and TOEFL, they can get you into most countries around the world. And it's also very useful to get a job in your own country as well. By showing that you have English ability and showing that you have a score from a very trusted test, it can really help with your resume when you're applying for jobs. So, yeah, lots of great reasons. Layla's saying, I have a very slow internet connection. You read my answers from the previous questions. Layla, I just noticed that when I was doing it, that this must have been from a previous time. So, yeah, I'll keep that in mind. And Bufares is saying for immigration. So, again, we can see lots of different reasons that people have for taking these tests. And there are a lot of reasons. There's so many benefits of taking, especially one of the more trusted English proficiency tests, IELTS or TOEFL. Okay, which test is the best to take? Now, what we mean by this question, which test is going to give you the most advantages, do you think? And maybe you could say why as well. Why do you think IELTS is the best? Or why do you think TOEFL is the best? why do you think Duolingo is the best? So let's write your answers in the chat and see what you think. Which test is the best for you to take and why? Um, Layla is saying, I don't know. Great answer. I don't know. A lot of people don't know, but maybe IELTS. Yeah. I think if you're unsure, IELTS is a great one to go for, Layla. It's going to prepare you for everything that you need when you're speaking, writing, listening, or reading in English. 511 is saying Manakanta. Oh, sorry. 511 Manakanta is saying IELTS. Zakaria, IELTS is the most versatile. So that's kind of the point I was making with Layla there. Yeah, it prepares you for every kind of thing you would need in English. Threebood, IELTS, Sleepwalker, IELTS, and TOEFL. Mohammed saying IELTS. Keening, IELTS. IELTS or TOEFL. I can't choose between them. Salma is saying, yep. Dubai is saying, I will take Duolingo because I use it. Yeah. So as long as you've got a purpose for doing that test, if you can use it, that's the right one for you, Dubai. Chiang is saying IELTS because IELTS is the most common and most trusted. Okay, good. Akash is saying IELTS and TOEFL. Hadi, IELTS. Bufares, IELTS. Okay, so a lot of you kind of think about this maybe because it is accepted in so many countries around the world. It is held to a very high standard. It has a long history. The test has been running since 1980. A lot of people respect and trust that test. So, yeah, maybe that's why. So Mimo is saying, frankly, it's very useful IELTS test. If you don't study previous English language, you should study a new language. Okay. Harry, IELTS and TOEFL, not TOEFL ITP though. Okay. So yeah, we were looking at the IBT TOEFL maybe then. Going to try IELTS. Good, Dubai. IELTS from Hanane. Good. And Duolingo, Sanjay is saying that was the most useful for him. Layla is also saying IELTS. So I think, again, the best test to take obviously is for you. What are you looking for from this? If it is to go to a university or to immigrate to another country, probably IELTS and TOEFL are the ones that you are looking towards. Dace is saying, please, sir, what about TOEIC? It is always available. Yes, TOEIC is always available, Dace, but again, it's one of those tests that's just not trusted these days. It will not get you into universities. It will not be accepted for immigration. It can be useful for getting some jobs and showing that you have English listening and some sort of reading or grammar ability, but it's not as widely respected as IELTS or TOEFL, especially for immigration purposes and for university entrance. Okay, so we've got another question here. How many hours a day should I study to prepare for a test? What do you think? 1 hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours? It depends. So, what do you think about this question? Write your answers in the chat and we will look at them in a minute. So, So what have we got here? Let me see. Um, it depends when you're going to take the test. That's a very, very good point here. It depends. It depends. It depends. Yeah. Layla is saying maybe 4 hours. Okay. I think 1 hour a day, Keening is saying. Um, Hasnain is saying 4. Layla, it depends. Dace, it depends. Dionisio, it depends. Yeah, it depends. I think Meifong as well. So yeah, I think this comment from Sleepwalker is quite important here. It depends when you're going to take the test. For a start, if you have booked your test and it is 1 month away and you haven't prepared, you're probably looking at 6 hours. But if you've maybe made a plan over a year and you've got a set schedule and maybe you've planned out 2 hours a day or 4 hours a day or whatever you think you need to reach that level, well, that would be what you would study. So again, it depends on a few things. When you're going to take the test, what level you're at, maybe when you need the test by. That's another important factor. So yeah, it depends. Let's see, Zakaria, it depends on how much time you have. That's another important thing. How soon you will take the test and the difference between your level and the level you are aiming for. Zakaria, I think you have summed up exactly what I was going to say and what, yeah, that's a fantastic answer. During the test, you will think I had to study 6 hours a day. Yeah, I haven't studied enough, maybe there. Very good. Hadi, it depends for me, I think 2 hours. Yeah. So that's the important thing. What is the most suitable for you? Like Zakaria said here, how much time you have, how soon you'll take the test, and so on. So institutional test. So this is about the TOEFL test. Yeah. So yeah, the TOEFL IBT is the internet based test. So yeah, they're slightly different. If I've got time, I'll come back to them in the end. The more, the better. Bienvenue is saying here. Yes, Mohammed. My name is James. Just hold a second. I'll put it up on the screen here. So that's how we spell it, James. So yeah, that is my name. Okay, we've got 2 more questions and then I'm going to give my opinions. How long does each test take? If you were listening at the beginning, you should be able to know this. So how long does Duolingo take? How long does Ielts take? How long does the TOEFL test take? So, write your answers in the chat. What do you think? How long does each test take? Any tips on true, false, not given reading? I'm not sure what you mean by this, Abhishek. Maybe try to clarify that question. Yeah, I think we were all listening at the beginning. Duolingo is 1 hour. Very good. IELTS is about 2 hours 40. 3 hours. Which one is 3 hours 511? Keening, which test is 2 hours? It depends if you're an intelligent person. Well, I think the test time won't change because you will need to use all of the time during the test. Yeah, IELTS and TOEFL are around 3 hours. Duolingo around 1 hour. So yeah, round about this. So IELTS 230 plus the speaking brings it up to 245. TOEFL between 3:15, 3:30. It depends on the listenings that they've used and the readings. Yeah. Usually 3:15, 3:30 at the most. There we go. 2:45, 3:15, 1. I showed that at the beginning. Very good. Oh, okay. Okay. So, last question we'll look at. Can I get a scholarship for any of these tests? So, if you're going to a university, can you get a scholarship with one of these tests? So, choose an answer. Yes, you can get a scholarship. No, you can't get a scholarship. Or no, but it could help. What do you think? Can I get a scholarship with any of these three tests? So let's check out some of these um, answers. What have we got here? Sleepwalker is saying no. Logic Tube is saying yes and no, but it could help. Layla is saying no, but it could help. No, but it could help. Hasnain is saying yes, it's possible. Yes, I can. I got one because of them. And Mimo is saying no, but it could help. Number 3 is the most suitable answer. No, but it could help. Okay. So, Harry, could you explain a little bit further here? Now, did you get the scholarship only because of your IELTS score or because of your TOEFL score? Or did you get it because of other things as well? I would be interested to know your answer to that question, Harry. If you got it only because of the TOEFL or IELTS score. No, but it could help. No, but it could help. It depends. It's a condition for some. This is important, Dace. It's a condition for some scholarships. Yeah. So, in my experience, students will not get the scholarship only based on their TOEFL or IELTS score. It will be based on some other things as well, but it could help a lot towards. So Dace has made a point here. So for some scholarships, they will say you need a minimum of this score to be able to apply for the scholarship. You might not still get the scholarship, but that will be the minimum that you need to apply. So you will not get a scholarship directly as a result of your TOEFL or IELTS scores, but it can help a lot with some scholarships, but it usually will depend on other things as well. And in my experience as well, the scholarship score for your IELTS will generally be higher than the score that you would use to be accepted. So yeah. So yeah, James, it's not only the English score, but it helped a lot, I'm sure, Harry. So yeah, so it's not only the English score. So you're not if you get a really good IELTS or TOEFL score, it doesn't mean you'll definitely get a scholarship, but it will help a lot towards that scholarship. Yeah, Harry's saying there are many things that make that up. And by the way, Harry, congratulations on getting a scholarship. That's excellent to hear that you were able to do that. So, yeah, we cannot get a scholarship just with these tests, but they can help a lot. When you go to your the panel meeting to see if you're accepted, they will look at your IELTS or TOEFL score. If your score's higher than you needed to be accepted for that course, that will be a positive for you when it comes to this. So you will not get a scholarship only based on the IELTS or TOEFL score, but it will help you. Okay, so we went through a lot of these questions here. Let's go on to kind of finish off here with some of my opinions. Um, and my opinions generally about these tests are that IELTS academic is a more complete test of the skills students need in higher education. It's going to prepare you much more than, for example, the Duolingo or something like the TOEIC test as well. So if we take this test and then we get accepted to a university, when we go to that university, we will understand what's going on. We will be able to read the articles. We will be able to understand the professors that are speaking to us. So it's a real complete test, I think. You're reading, writing, listening, and so on. Okay. Also, the materials used in IELTS are more academically oriented. So, what it means, oriented means they are aimed towards people studying for university. So, the lectures will be on academic topics, the reading will be on academic topics. So, it's really going to prepare you for that. IELTS academic is more transparently aligned to the CEFR, which is the kind of European standard for testing. And transparently aligned means it is linked and it's very obvious for everybody to see that. So they're not hiding anything. They're not trying to trick you in any sort of way. It's a very trusted, honest test and linked to the CEFR. Should you take the DET, so the Duolingo English Test? Well, if you're looking for academically oriented lessons and test, it's probably not the best one for you. The tasks are not going to prepare you to go into a university lecture room like the IELTS or TOEFL exams would. It's heavily weighted towards vocabulary and grammar. There are some speaking and writing and listening, but there's not a huge amount in this test. So, yeah, it is more weighted towards just a grammar and vocabulary test. I don't think that would fully prepare you for academic life in a foreign country. It can be useful though, especially if we're looking to make some sort of general judgment on people's ability. It can give you a kind of rough distinction. So, what is somebody's level? I think it could be good for that, showing what level you are at in English. And it has limitations. It can't do everything. That's what we mean by limitations. It cannot do everything, especially when it comes to predicting academic success. As I said before, it's not academically oriented. So I don't think by getting Duolingo, you're going to be properly prepared to succeed when you do go to a foreign university. Should I take IELTS? Well, obviously, I teach on an IELTS channel. I'm going to encourage you to come to my channel and learn about that. But that's not the only reason. It covers vocabulary and grammar. it includes in-depth assessment, very detailed grading of communication skills, the ability to use and understand language in an academic context. So, in a university or college life. So, yeah, it's much more detailed. It's really going to prepare you for studying abroad or working abroad as well. It reflects the ability to use for the language required in the real world. So, if you're getting a score of 7 in the Ielts test, I think you can handle any English situation. Real world English would not be a problem for you. Even with a score of 5 to 5.5, you're going to be able to deal with most everyday things in English. So, yeah, it really prepares you to use English in the real world. So, yeah, I think the IELTS test has a lot of advantages. So, after talking about the IELTS test, I can direct you to the channel. My channel is IELTS Insider. We offer live classes, some mock tests, speaking practice. All of the links for that channel are below. So please check the video description. Also, while you're down there, why don't you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and come and join our WhatsApp groups and look at our other social media as well. So, I think this is a good time to wrap up today's live stream. I would like to thank everybody for their comments and their input during the live stream today. Certainly, some interesting opinions were given and a lot of differing opinions. And I think that's what's important about these tests. Not everybody is doing them for the same reason. They've got their own reasons for taking these tests. So, um, let's just look at a few more questions. Did we have any more? Okay. Yeah, I think the at the moment the IELTS test covers the most to prepare you for academic life, but also to prepare you for everyday life in English. There'll be no more surprises. Yeah. Sleepwalker, we have learned a lot about these tests. Thank you for such a detailed explanation. You're very welcome. And thank you for reading our comments. 4 streams is not easy. Yeah, it was quite difficult to keep up with all of the chat today. Yes, it really helps develop our general English. We're going to improve our reading, writing, listening, speaking, our grammar, punctuation. All of these things will improve with IELTS. You're very welcome, Mimo. Bai Mei Fong, you are welcome. And Zakaria, thank you. And Layla, you're welcome. Akash, great. I'm glad you found it useful. So we're going to wrap up there. Thanks for joining. And I hope to see you all again in another live stream. Bye for now, everyone.